The best way to predict the future is to create it. Time is precious, time is money, and this is the time for Money Talk on Atlantic Television Network. Good day, viewers, and welcome to a fresh episode of Atn Business on Atlantic Television Network right here in the city of Port Harcourt. This is the network's medium of bringing the happenings in the economic sector of society to our discerning viewers. This program is aimed at bringing to the doorstep of viewers the business, financial, and economic news about government economic activities, private sector business activities, laced with expert opinions, stakeholders analysis, and correspondence reports. We are open for advert placement, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, on Twitter, Atlantic TV Net, or you can watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. We take a short break, and when we return, we will fill out the details. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now on to the stories proper. Nigerian Education Loan Fund (NEL) Fund has disbursed 116.184 billion naira for institutional loan and upkeep of students across 176,252 beneficiary institutions in the country as of January 2025. The managing director, Akintunde Sawyer, has indicated the funds distributed under the Nigerian Student Loan Scheme have benefited 680,658 students in universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. The federal government has also approved 4 billion naira for conditional cash transfers to support vulnerable households across the country. In addition, the government approved 2 billion naira for interest-free loans to farmers in rural areas. The initiative aligns with President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, which prioritizes breaking financial barriers to education. Out of the 116.1 billion naira disbursed, 37 billion naira was allocated for institutional loans covering tuition and fees, while 78 billion naira was distributed as upkeep loans to support students with living expenses. This level of investment is transforming the lives of Nigerian students and their families, Sawyer stated. The loans have not only eased the financial burden on families, but also improved academic outcomes, with students performing better due to reduced stress over funding. Sawyer added that the scheme has contributed to stabilizing academic calendars by minimizing disruptions linked to financial challenges. He noted NEL Fund's efforts include a nationwide sensitization campaign to ensure every eligible student can access the scheme. So far, 457,621 students have registered with their interest, with 352,706 completing applications. Regional participation rates vary, but targeted outreach is being implemented to boost awareness in undeserved areas. The Education Loan Fund, he disclosed, was however given a mega 58.4 billion naira budget envelope for the 2025 fiscal year. On the 2025 budgeting proposal, the NEL Fund boss informed the Senator Montaru Danduze and Goyega Ishiaka led a joint committee that a 58.4 billion naira budget envelope was given to the agency, 7 billion naira for overhead cost and 21.4 billion naira for capital expenditure, he explained. After considering After consideration of the budgetary proposals of the IT's 2025 budgetary proposals, the chairman of the Joint Committee, Montaria, harped on transparency on the spending of appropriations made for the agency in 2025. Special advisor to the president on energy, Olu Vehejen, has revealed that Nigeria's energy sector received injections worth $6.7 billion in 2024. Vehejen reviewed this in a report titled Presidency Energy Sector Wrap-Up 2024, released by our office on Wednesday. According to the report, $5.5 billion of the total investment went into the oil and gas sector. $400 million of the federal government's funds went into the presidential metering initiative, while its clean mobility and cooking program got $700 million. Assets acquisition accounted for the $5.5 billion investment. This includes the Nigerian Consortium's acquisition of Shell Petroleum Development Company Limited at $1.3 billion. The report read in part, Seplat Energy PLC completed the acquisition of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited from ExxonMobil Corporation, $1.3 billion firm consideration. Chapal Energies completed the acquisition of Equinor Nigeria Energy Company, a subsidiary of Norway's Equinor ASA, $1.2 billion. Chapal Energies completed the acquisition of Total Energies EP, Nigeria's 10% interest in the SPDC JV licenses in Nigeria, $860 million. Wanda PLC completed the acquisition of the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company, NAOC, $800 million. These acquisitions unlock onshore fields for a new wave of ambitious indigenous companies ready to invest and boost production. This shift strengthens local ownership, drives immediate growth in oil and gas output, and sets Nigeria on a path to a more stable and prosperous energy future. Additionally, the report emphasized key investments the federal government secured in the oil and gas sector through tax incentives for onshore and shallow water, non-associated gas, and deep offshore oil and gas. The Vehejen's report revealed that SNEPCO invested $5 billion in the Bonga North Deep Offshore Project, the first greenfield deep offshore project in over a decade. Its production companies estimated at 110,000 barrels per day. In the gas industry, Total Energies and Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited invested $550 million in the Ubeta non-associated gas projects. The report further revealed that the federal government is targeting $30 billion in the oil sector and $5 billion in the gas industry by 2029. It affirmed that Nigeria is now positioned to attract $5 billion in gas investment by 2029, enhancing gas availability for the export and supporting the energy transition. The agent said Nigeria is positioned to tap into $30 billion in deep offshore investment by 2029. President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, Gabriel Idahosa, has said rising debt burdens and limited access to international financing will continue to hinder Nigeria's economic recovery this year. Speaking yesterday at the first quarterly State of the Economic Conference for the year in Lagos, he said the global geopolitical environment in 2025 remained fraught with challenges that would significantly shape the economic outlook. Escalating competition between the US and China, marked by intensifying trade and technology wars, may disrupt supply chains and fuel global market uncertainty in the near term, he said. Lamenting persistent inflationary pressures, he said food inflation remained a pressing issue, with worsening food security, conflicts, and economic instability, regretting that food and headline inflation, coupled with slow economic growth, would push millions further into poverty. According to him, Nigeria is experiencing a severe food security crisis, with projections indicating that 33.1 million Nigerians will face high levels of food insecurity by mid-2025. This alarming situation, he said, was driven by economic hardship and record high food inflation, and called for the extension of the import waivers given to critical imports, including agricultural input. He said, while the recent GDP growth figures highlighted commendable progress, the gap between current economic realities and the 2025 budgetary goals raised significant concerns that required targeted actions, added that the GDP growth of 3.46% in third quarter 2024, driven primarily by the services sector, 5.19% growth, 53.58% GDP contribution, underscored the persistent concern about productivity in the real sector to diversify the economy. Urging the federal government to embrace fiscal discipline and growth drivers and create an enabling environment for business recovery, he said the government's projected GDP growth rate of 6.4% was ambitious, given the average growth trajectory of 2.5 to 3.5% over recent years. He lamented that the private sector was plagued with increasing borrowing costs, reduced investment incentives, heightened uncertainties, and a pressured FX market. Rate hikes alone, he noted, would not curb inflation without resolving the challenges of the real sector, the agriculture and manufacturing sectors, which can create more jobs, manufacture for food consumption and export, and form the economy's industrial base. Speaking on the 2025 budget, he said its full implementation was a key performance driver, adding that fiscal discipline must complement efforts to effectively manage the 15.81 trillion naira debt servicing allocation, achieving inflation reduction to 15% and stabilizing FX at 1,400 per dollar requires addressing structural challenges, he said. Decrying the delayed power sector, he said despite having the capacity to generate 14,000 megawatts, the country was still struggling to supply an average of 4,000 megawatts due to an overstressed grid and outdated infrastructure. Minister of Trade, Jumoke Oduwole, said that the ministry will be watching the body language of the President of the United States, US, Donald Trump, and the country's Commerce Secretary. In an interview with newsmen, Arise News, the minister noted that the US is a strategic partner for Nigeria. The US is a strategic partner for Nigeria. We continue to do good business with Nigeria and the United States. We also have made it clear that we'll be watching the body language of President Trump. We will be watching his Commerce Secretary and what they have to offer for Nigeria. We work very closely with the diplomats right now in Nigeria. We continue to look forward to that, said Oduwole. The minister described Nigeria as a beautiful bride with friends from Brazil, China, and India. Nigeria is a beautiful bride. We are friends with China. We are friends with Brazil. The Indian Prime Minister, after 17 years, was in Nigeria. UAE, we are having meetings. Saudi Arabia, Germany, we are open for business. We are looking at everybody's body language, including the United States. While speaking about Nigeria's ambition as a strategic global partner, the minister stated that the country is speaking to investors and aiming to become an outsourcing champion like the Philippines. Rising inflation, high interest rates, and naira depreciation could push an additional 30 million Nigerians below the national poverty line by 2025, according to a new report titled 2025 Nigerian Budget and Economic Outlook by PricewaterhouseCoopers International Limited, PwC. The report stated macroeconomic pressure points such as rising inflation, high interest rates, and naira depreciation may drive an additional 13 million people below the national poverty line by 2025. PwC further noted the number of people living below the national poverty line is projected to increase by about 13 million by 2025, attributing this rise to the country's worsening inflation and high cost of living. The report highlighted these economic headwinds as major contributors to the projected increase in poverty levels. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's headline inflation rate stood at 34.80% as of December 2024. Also, the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Chief Francis Meshoye, disclosed that the manufacturing sector faced severe challenges in 2024, driven by macroeconomic issues such as high inflation, soaring interest rates, and the depreciating naira. On a positive note, however, the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) is projecting the economy to grow by 4.17% this year, driven by ongoing reforms and stabilizing inflation. Governor Olayemi Cardoso said yesterday reforms introduced by President Bola Tinubu in 2023, including the removal of the petrol subsidy and 2 devaluations of the naira, have contributed to rising inflation in Africa's most populous country. Cardoso stated at a conference that inflation, currently at 34.8%, is expected to decline as the reforms begin to yield positive results. He also noted that foreign exchange reserves are expected to rise gradually, supported by increased oil production. Oil output is forecast to reach 2.3 million barrels per day by mid-year, Cardoso revealed. According to him, Nigeria recorded foreign exchange inflows exceeding $6 billion in 2024, pushing foreign exchange reserves to over $40 billion. Cardoso emphasized that the central bank's priority remains maintaining price stability and strengthening market confidence. To achieve this, the bank plans to improve transparency and efficiency in the foreign exchange market. With limited opportunities for foreign exchange arbitrage, we anticipate greater interest in real sector development, he added. Similarly, Nigeria's economy is projected to witness a decline in inflation and stabilization of foreign exchange rates by 2025 as reforms in key economic sectors and policy adjustments take place. Experts shared this projection yesterday in Lagos during the executive roundtable on Nigeria's 2025 budget and economic outlook organized by PwC and Business Day Media. The event themed insights and strategies for navigating Nigeria's economic, fiscal and policy landscape in 2025, highlighted the country's fiscal challenges and opportunities. The experts noted that government revenue is expected to grow in 2025 due to ongoing reforms. However, achieving the ambitious revenue target of 36.25 trillion naira will require substantial effort. Inflation may ease as supply-driven inflationary pressures subside and monetary policy tightening is sustained. However, the Nigerian government's planned expenditure increase to 47.7 trillion naira in 2024, coupled with the introduction of a new minimum wage, is expected to drive inflation. As a result, the CBN is likely to maintain a tight monetary policy to manage these inflationary pressures, he explained. He further highlighted that the planned increase is in telecom tariffs and rising electricity sector-specific inflation. While improved price stability in petroleum products (PMS) could help mitigate some inflationary pressures, the overall impact on sectors such as telecommunications and energy may still result in higher consumer costs. We will go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll delve into the rest of our stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Oil marketers have expressed optimism about the rehabilitation of Nigeria's 21 depot by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited following the recent revival of the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries by the NNPCL. Although the National Oil Company has promised to get the depots running, dealers in the downstream oil sector told our correspondents that it is important to hasten the revamp of the facilities, as this would increase the gains of having functional refineries in Nigeria. They urged the National Oil Firm to take immediate and decisive steps to restore an inactive fuel depot owned by the company across the country. The National Oil Firm, who currently incur extra costs in payments for private depot for handling its products, was tasked to revamp the 21 idle stations for the benefit of Nigerians. Dealing under the aegis of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association Nigeria, said the operational commencement of the 210,000 barrels per day Port Harcourt refinery and the 125,000 barrels per day Warri refinery is enough reason to bring back the moribund depot and further reduce petrol costs. The marketers also noted that the pipelines that supply or evacuate products to the depot were either vandalized or obsolete for many years without repair, stressing that this was why the NNPCL had been deploying the services of private depot owners between 1970s and 1989. The federal government, through the former Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, built 3 refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna. This was in addition to an existing one in Port Harcourt, which was built by Shell and BP in 1965, later bought over by NNPCL. The NNPCL installed a network of pipelines across the country, totaling over 5,120 kilometers in length, to facilitate crude supply to the refineries and product evacuation from there. The depot and pipelines operated by the Pipelines and Products Marketing Company, a subsidiary of the NNPC, were built to enable the distribution of products by pipeline to depot to make the journey to retail outlets easier and cheaper. However, the decline in domestic production and the shift to fuel imports led to the neglect of many NNPCL depot, causing the country to increasingly rely on private tank farms and road tankers for the supply and distribution of products. National Association of Telecommunications Subscribers will engage the Nigerian Communications Commission on Friday, seeking a possible reversal of the 50% telecom tariff hike to 10%, as the Nigerian Labour Congress signals readiness for protest. The federal government approved a 50% increase after operators initially requested a 100% hike. However, subscribers are pushing for a 10% adjustment, and if talks fail, they plan to file a lawsuit next week to challenge the decision. The hike, the first in over a decade, is aimed at revitalizing the struggling telecom sector, which contributes about 14% to Nigeria's economy and has continued to spark widespread debates and controversies. The labor union, led by Joseph Ajero, criticized the increase on Wednesday, describing it as an added burden on Nigerian workers who earn less than $50 per month as minimum wage. The union warned of potential collective actions, including a nationwide boycott of telecom services, to compel the government and the NCC to reverse the decision. Speaking with newsmen on the development on Thursday, NATCAM's president Adeola Ogunbajo said, going to court is the civil way of doing things, not boycotting the telecom services. He expressed concern that such actions would harm investor confidence in the Nigerian market, especially as the government works to attract foreign investment. We're not backing the NLC at all. It will send wrong signals to investors. These are private businesses, and President Bola Tinubu is trying hard to woo investors, so we can't support that rascality. Tariff rates on phone calls and messages have remained unchanged, even as operators face rising costs fueled by inflation, exchange rate volatility, and substantial investments needed to meet increasing consumer demand. These challenges have created significant financial strain, jeopardizing the sustainability of the telecommunications sector, a vital pillar of Nigeria's digital economy. The Subscriber Association emphasized that the telecom sector is a model of successful privatization in Nigeria, urging NLC to seek solutions that may benefit both consumers and operators. Telcos are there to make a profit, and at the same time, consumers must not be exploited. We've been at this for quite a while, he said. NATCOMS, however, reiterated its call for telecom operators to explore alternative funding options such as initial public offerings to raise capital. Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, has expressed optimism about Nigeria's inflation trajectory for 2025, asserting that the country could achieve a significant reduction from the average inflation rate of 34.80% in 2024 to 15%. Oyedele said this at the PwC and Business Day Executive Roundtable on Nigeria's 2025 budget and economic outlook with the theme Insights and Strategies for Navigating Nigeria's Economic, Fiscal and Policy Landscape in 2025 on Thursday in Lagos. He outlined the factors influencing inflation and emphasized the structural reforms being implemented by the government. I hear people say 15% inflation is not possible, but I disagree. If 2025 is as challenging as 2024, inflation will minimally drop to 25% due to the base effects. However, I believe the reforms in place will limit key inflationary factors, paving the way for even lower rates, Oyedele said. Oyedele attributed the soaring inflation in 2024 to three main factors: exchange rate fluctuations, the removal of fuel subsidies, and high interest rates. Foreign exchange volatility was the biggest driver, with rates jumping from 900 naira to about 1,600 naira and even peaking at 1,900 naira at one point. Fuel subsidy removal and high non-performing loans also compounded the situation, he explained. Despite the challenges, Oyedele noted that the outlook for 2025 remains more favorable. These three major factors will have a limited impact in 2025, if at all, he said. With the government's commitment to not printing new money and implement fiscal discipline, the inflationary pressures are expected to ease, Oyedele said. On oil production and revenue, Oyedele acknowledged that Nigeria's production levels are gradually improving. We are currently at 1.8 million barrels per day, which is close to the target of 2 million. While I'm more concerned about Nigeria's prices and volume, the investments in the sector should bring some stability, he noted. Addressing the hardship faced by Nigerians, Oyedele acknowledged the pain caused by the reforms. It is honestly very painful what Nigerians are going through. The removal of the subsidies and foreign exchange reforms have been tough, but they were necessary. For the first time, we are allowing market forces to determine prices, which has brought transparency, he said. Oyedele also highlighted the government's efforts to improve foreign exchange liquidity. We are taking significant pressure off the foreign exchange market. About $20 million is saved daily, and with tax reforms, we expect an additional $44 billion to be removed from the market annually, he reviewed. Concluding his remarks, Oyedele called for optimism about the naira. I don't believe 1,500 naira is the fair value of the naira. It is undervalued, and as liquidity improves, we should see a recovery, he said. Oyedele's analysis underscores the need for patience and resilience as Nigeria navigates the path to economic recovery and stability. Managing Director of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, Olubunmi Kuku, has threatened that when she is tired of her role as the boss of the agency, she will throw in the towel. Kuku said this while fielding aviation industry-based questions on Television Continental on Thursday evening. The FAAN MD, who said she had stepped on toes and will step on more people's toes, although with caution, stated, "If I am tired, I will get out of the job. I have stepped on toes and I am still stepping on toes, and I know that I need to do that with caution, but definitely not at the jeopardy of the airport system. If I have to, I will step it down. I will resign if I see that it is not working, but what is important is to make sure that I do what is right." She also responded to criticisms that have greeted her claim that 580 billion naira is required to fix obsolete runways across the country. Kuku, who confirmed the barrage of critics questioning what FAAN needed such a humongous amount for, appealed to all who care to understand the need for the money to find out what it takes to take care of aviation infrastructures. She said, "I would like to clarify two things. First, we have a number of runways in Nigeria today. We have mentioned to you that there are 22 airports that are owned by the federal government, and we also support some that are state-owned." I also made specific reference to airports with runways that have exceeded their lifespan. The average lifespan of runways is about 20 to 25 years, and a lot of our runways in Nigeria have actually exceeded that time, meaning that we had them for 30 to over 35 years. What it means is that we have to reconstruct those runways. The 580 billion naira that I initially mentioned was for over 17 runways, and it's not just runways but also include some perimeter fencing and so on. I have seen commentaries where people asked what we would be needing those monies for. Just look it up in Google to understand what it means to build runways, taxi expansion, and all that is needed to be done. While speaking on what she has done within her first 100 days in office, Kuku topped her achievement with the level of sanity that has been restored to Nigerian aerodromes in the last 90 days. We have spent too much time talking about the decay, and it is time for us to start fixing things, and that is exactly what we are doing. And what is more critical is the continuity, meaning that wherever we stop, somebody needs to pick that up, and that is the biggest challenge that we see, because we have a new administration. We tend not to complete or continue old projects. Now to what we are doing, I think what to do is to block some immediate gaps, which is what we have done. If you have been a traveler in the last 19 days, you will observe that the airports are cleaner and more friendly in terms of the atmosphere. Federal government has approved 4 billion naira for conditional cash transfers to vulnerable households in Nigeria. During the launch of the 2025 Nigeria Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan at the United Nations House in Abuja on Thursday, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Nentawe Iwada, announced the interventions to address the country's deepening humanitarian crisis. This move is expected to support at least 10 million displaced households, primarily targeting the most vulnerable members of society. The cash transfer program is set to begin in February and continue through April, aiming to alleviate the immediate needs of families affected by displacement, particularly in the northeast. Additionally, government has approved 2 billion naira in interest-free loans to farmers, specifically those in rural communities, to boost food production and self-sufficiency. We are prioritizing women, especially widows, pregnant women, and those with disabilities. The experiences of displaced women, particularly those facing pregnancy or a disability, are especially challenging. We understand these vulnerabilities and will continue to support those who are most in need, he said. The president has approved the ministry's plan to begin paying conditional cash transfers to 10 million displaced households between February and April. This initiative aims to support those most in need, particularly vulnerable families affected by displacement, he added. Additionally, the government has allocated 2 billion naira to provide interest-free loans to farmers in rural communities. These loans will range from 300,000 to 400,000 per household, helping farmers access necessary resources and linking them to market opportunities. Furthermore, a 4 billion naira provision has been approved to support vulnerable groups through cash transfers, targeting families affected by natural disasters and other crises. These interventions are part of the government's broader strategy to alleviate poverty and provide relief to those in urgent need, the minister stated. He further emphasized the government's commitment to addressing the needs of internally displaced persons, returnees, and affected communities across Nigeria. World Trade Organization Chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala urged nations Thursday to keep calm over tariffs, warning that a tit-for-tat trade war would be catastrophic for the world economy. Okonjo-Iweala issued an appeal during a panel discussion on tariffs at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, in a week that saw U.S. President Donald Trump threaten tariffs against China, the European Union, Mexico, and Canada. The World Trade Organization Director urged cooler heads to prevail, equipping, please let's not hyperventilate. I know we are here to discuss tariffs. I have been saying to everybody, could you chill? Also, I just sense a lot of hyperventilation. She recalled the fallout from the Smooth Hawley Tariff Act in the United States during the Great Depression in 1930, which prompted retaliation and worsened the global economic crisis at the time. We are very much saying to our members at the World Trade Organization, you have other avenues. Even if a tariff is levied, please keep calm. Don't wake up and without necessary groundwork levy your own, she said. If we have tit for tat retaliation, whether it's 25% tariffs, 60%, and we go to where we were in the 1930s, we are going to see double-digit global GDP losses. Double digit, that's catastrophic. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu has reassured Nigerians of his commitment to delivering a stable electricity supply, stating that efforts are ongoing to improve the country's power infrastructure. Adelabu also addressed misconceptions surrounding the 8 billion naira allocation in the Ministry of Power's 2025 budget, clarifying that the funds are earmarked for advocacy against vandalism, education, enlightenment, and deploying technology to safeguard power infrastructure, not for sensitizing citizens to pay electricity bills. The minister, who came under fire on social media following claims that the ministry was spending 8 billion naira on electricity bill awareness, dismissed the reports as unfounded. He explained that the ministry's focus is on combating the growing menace of vandalism, which has severely disrupted power supply in many parts of the country. A statement by the minister's special advisor on strategic communications and media relations, Bolaji Tunji, quoted Adelabu as saying, far from what is being circulated, the federal government is deeply concerned about the cost of the acts of sabotage that have eroded the gains in electricity supply. The 8 billion naira budget allocation is targeted at sensitizing Nigerians to protect and take ownership of national power assets. Adelabu highlighted the alarming rates of vandalism, including recent incidents where underground cables in Abuja were destroyed, plunging parts of the city into darkness. As the National Assembly considers the proposed tax reforms bills, the Citizen Network for Peace and Development in Nigeria, CNPD, has rejected the Nigeria Governors Forum proposed VAT sharing formula, which allocates 50% based on equity, 30% based on derivation, and 20% based on population. CNPD's national coordinator, Mr. Okori Ikechukwu Raphael, at a press conference held in Abuja on Friday, urged that the NGF formula does not take into account productivity and economic growth, which are critical factors in determining a state's contribution to the national economy. CNPD contended that by ignoring productivity, the formula may inadvertently penalize states that are making concerted efforts to diversify their economies and promote economic growth. CNPD urged the National Assembly to reconsider the proposal and adopt a more nuanced approach that rewards productivity and economic growth. CNPD maintained that there is no gainsaying the fact that the proposed tax reform bills have the potential to ensure that revenues derived from taxes are channeled into critical sectors such as education, healthcare, and rural development, thereby reducing poverty and inequality. The proposed law focuses on inclusive taxation. Consequently, this reform is aimed at stimulating small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, encouraging grassroots entrepreneurship, and fostering economic diversification, as well as sustainable growth for future generations, the group noted. Specifically, we commend the tax reform bill's provision that exempts individuals and households earning less than $1 million per year, and companies earning less than $50 million per year from taxation. This bold initiative demonstrates the government's commitment to alleviating poverty and promoting economic inclusivity. By shielding low-income earners and small businesses from the tax burden, the bill will undoubtedly stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and improve living standards. Given its poor orientation, we strongly advocate for an accelerated passage of the tax reform bill to ensure its timely implementation and realization of its benefits for the most vulnerable segments of our society. Applauding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his economic team for conceiving the idea behind the tax reform bill, CNPD stressed that if passed into law and implemented with the right focus and fairness, the bill has the potential to be a cornerstone for poverty alleviation and just economic redistribution in Nigeria. The group therefore called on the National Assembly to uphold this pro-poor agenda and urged all stakeholders to prioritize the interests of the common man over parochial interests. National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control (NAFDAC) has destroyed counterfeit medicines and wholesome food products worth over 1.36 billion naira in the Federal Capital Territory (FCT). The destruction, which took place at the Kuje dump site, was carried out by NAFDAC in collaboration with the men of the Nigeria Police, the Department of State Civil Services (DSS), the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA), and the Standards Organization of Nigeria. Speaking at the destruction site yesterday in Abuja, the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, noted that some of the items destroyed included expired and unwholesome products voluntarily submitted for destruction by NGOs and the Association of Community Pharmacy of Nigeria (ACPN), among others. She said drugs including psychoactive and controlled substances, antibiotics, antihypertensives, anti-malarials, herbal snuff and herbal remedies were seized from hawkers, while food products such as cookies, vegetable oil, non-alcoholic beverages and other items with labeling only in foreign languages lacking English translation were seized from supermarkets. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Customs Service yesterday began nationwide destruction of over 100 containers of illegally imported pharmaceuticals. The exercise started with the incineration of 540 foot containers of seized pharmaceuticals at Alaru dump site in Ekpe, Lagos State. We're going to break, and when we return, we look at the stock market, foreign exchange market, and what the exchange rate is today. Do not go away. Welcome back. Rising gold prices dampened demand for physical gold across most Asian markets this week, as Indian dealers offered the steepest discounts in over 6 months. In India, domestic gold prices reached an all-time high of 80,034 rand, $297.69 per 10 grams on Friday. The surge was driven by international spot gold prices, which hovered near a record high of $2,790.15 last seen on October 31. Retail demand was negligible this week due to the price rise. Most jewelry stores were witnessing thin footfall. A Chennai-based bullion dealer told newsmen on Friday. Indian dealers this week offered the discount of up to $38 an ounce over official domestic prices, inclusive of 6% import and 3% sales levies, up from the last week's discount of $30 an ounce. Jewelers were not making purchases, as some are speculating that the government might change the import duty structure in the next week's annual budget. said a Mumbai-based dealer with a private bullion importing bank. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present the next fiscal year's federal budget on February 1, following a significant import tax cut on gold in the previous budget. In top consumer China, dealers offered discounts of $10 and charged a premium of $10 per ounce above international rates versus premiums of $3 to $13 last week. Chinese gold prices are higher again and close to historical highs, which has shocked out demand, but some people are still buying due to the holiday season starting next week, said the mainland China-based precious metal trader. Speaking from Washington to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Trump demanded that central banks across the globe lower interest rates. In Hong Kong, gold was sold at par with a $2 premium. In Japan, bullion was sold from a discount of $1 to a premium of $1. Trading houses hesitate to purchase gold with rates increasing, said a Tokyo-based analyst. Foreign investors added $273.5 billion to the emerging market equity and debt portfolios last year, nearly $100 billion more in 2023, according to a bank trade group's preliminary data published on Friday. The $273.5 billion of inflows for 2024 tops the $177.4 billion in 2023, though it was below the $375 billion average between 2019 to 2021. According to the report from the Institute of International Finance, almost all the inflow was money put into fixed income last year, with $219 billion added to debt outside China and $54.2 billion to Chinese debt. The picture was more split in stocks, where China The picture was more split in stocks, where Chinese equities raked in $11.3 billion, while those elsewhere in the developing economies world lost $11 billion, the data showed. US growth and the strength of the dollar were headwinds to investing in emerging markets most of the year, and the Federal Reserve itself has downgraded its expectations for rate cuts in 2025, which in turn provides yet more support to the dollar. Signs of a looser monetary policy in the US would be supportive of EM assets in general. Throughout 2024, the strong dollar and elevated US yields created significant headwinds for EM equities and certain debt markets, a trend that may reverse if the FED begins signaling rate cuts in the coming months, said IIF economist Jonathan Fortune in a statement. Romania's attempts to restore investor confidence and lower the European Union's highest budget deficit have hit early hurdles in a year fraught with political jeopardy and the risk of losing its coveted investment grade ratings. Of Russian interference makes it harder to craft a credible plan to lower its deficit to 7% of economic output. The country plans to raise 13 billion euros. 13.6p could cut its rating outlook to negative on Friday, following a similar move by Fitch last month. Both agencies, as well as Moody's, already have Romania on the lowest investment grade. Losing an investment grade rating, thus becoming a fallen angel, could increase borrowing costs. A 2016 World Bank study found that being cut to junk by at least two major ratings agencies increases a country's short-term borrowing cost by almost 200 basis points on average. And this is where we wrap it up on this episode of Atn Business on Atlantic Television Network. We are open for advert placements, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our Atn socials